Team insiders all over the country are crossing fingers when they get practice reports sent out, and you're just hoping, oh man, there's no injury news. Well, we can't say that about Washington because Cam Davis, their starting running back, out for the season with a lower leg injury, and that's a 13-touchdown guy last year. He was the clear RB1 for this team, and sometimes when you listen to odds makers talk about how they figure out how good a team is, this is where I differ with them. So Cam Davis goes down, big-time player, but he's a running back. And so an odds maker would say, I adjusted Washington half a point for this or 3/4 of a point in my power ratings. I don't believe in that. I know what they mean. I understand the science behind it. But game to game, this is the kind of guy that not having could mean 11 points. You cannot assignate 11 points of value for a running back, of course, but game to game, and they're going to play 12 of them out there, including, 9 in conference. This is a big loss for them because behind him, Washington just has transfers. Now, remember the other day when I told you I got Washington a little bit lower than the AP does, I said it's because I don't think they have the elite kind of talent and depth that maybe you would expect from a top 10 team. Well, I got some pushback on that because people mistakenly heard me say they don't have talent. I didn't say that at all. But at a place like Georgia where they got running back issues right now, they got another one and then another one. Bama, ditto, another one. Ohio State, they don't have that at Washington. That's the difference. That's the talent I'm talking about. So they got 3 transfers there, none of whom you've probably heard a whole lot about, and the season hasn't started. Still going to be a very good team, but this is something to keep an eye on. Speaking of Georgia, they got running back issues there too. They're not the same kind of issues because there are several guys there that can get the job done for them. But when you pull up your phone the other day and you see Georgia running back out for the season with an injury, it's a big deal because it's Branson Robinson. And that was one of about 3 names I had kept hearing from their fall camp as a guy who's really, really shining. They thought he had feature back potential. Like they thought they could feature him instead of just strictly having to do running back by committee. I've told you about this for 2 weeks now. It's not a glaring, 5-alarm alert over Georgia, but it's a legitimate concern. Well, that was before they lost him. Now they lost Branson Robinson, and it's a real concern. You've still got the entirety of the season. This is just fall camp. So Dejon Edwards has been iffy health-wise. Kendall Milton's been iffy health-wise his entire career. So there are names in the room. There are not 3 or 4 names. There's not the kind of depth, in other words, that you'd ideally want to have if you're Kirby Smart. And remember, Kenny McIntosh was there last year. He went off to the NFL. This is where it becomes so important for Carson Beck to be what they think he is. They don't think Carson Beck is some, as you would call them, game manager. Carson Beck's not an underneath facilitator, hand the ball off, let's win it, being ultra-conservative. They think Carson Beck can win games with his arm. They're going to have to be right about that. I don't know when it's going to be. It could be against Kentucky for all I know. It could be against Missouri. It could be against Ole Miss. It doesn't always have to be on the road at Tennessee when you get pushed. And so I think Carson Beck is going to be that, by the way. I think he's going to be a strength of their offense. I think Carson Beck will be a strength of their offense. The thing is, the more you start to hear about that running back position, the more I better be right about that, is what I'm saying. Next up, this is a very peculiar situation at Iowa. I needed to touch on it. So Noah Shannon, first things first, is out for the season, not because of injury, but because of gambling. The gambling probe that has swept the Hawkeye State up there, he's caught up in it, so he's out for the season. That's a senior. He had 44 tackles last year, was going to be a starter. He played in every game a season ago. So they're still going to have a really good defensive line. They feel like they got one of the best defensive lines they've had in a long time up there, and that's saying something because that's Iowa. But this little Post-it on my index finger here, which I'm going to go ahead and ceremonially pop, is about Cade McNamara. So in just a second, Director Colin's going to play some sound. But before he plays it, what are we talking about? Why are we talking about a Michigan quarterback? Well, if you've been, celebrating what some would call the offseason, you may not know that Cade McNamara doesn't play for Michigan anymore. He transferred to Iowa. Hey, good for him, right? He's going to start. Or is he? So a couple of weeks ago, he had a non-contact leg injury. And because Iowa's not one of the absolute highest profile programs in America, you have not gotten day-to-day updates on that. Well, That's where Shannon Earhart of KCCI News in Des Moines steps in, because she asked Cade McNamara, I think almost in passing, sort of just expecting him to say, I'm good to go. She asked him, hey, how you feeling? Let's hear what he had to say.
And then you talk about rehabbing. How are you coming along?
I'm progressing, and that's all I want to say about that.
Not too good. Translation guide there. Not too good. Again, that was KCCI in Des Moines, Iowa. So, Jesse tells me that behind Mr. McNamara, we have a kid named Deacon. And so the Deacon's going to have to probably handle it up there, because if I had to put my uneducated guess on it, that doesn't sound like a guy that's going to be ready to go for Utah State. And then they go to Iowa State week 2. They got at Penn State in week 4. Keep a close eye on that. Like, Iowa is a very, very much a contending team in the Big Ten West. Oregon State has named DJ Uiagalelei starting quarterback. This is not a shock. Again, if you're the kind of person who just takes vacation in the summer, you may not even know he transferred up there. Yeah, former 5-star, former Clemson Tiger, DJU. He is the starter for Oregon State. I'd put that at like a 3 on the surprise scale. Everyone expected it. At Arizona State, talked to you about this a week ago. Jaden Rashada has been named the starting quarterback there. So it has happened. You had the whole NIL drama with Florida. He's in, he's out, he's in, he's out, immunity. Well, now he is off to Tempe, Arizona, and he is the starting quarterback for the Kenny Dillingham-led Arizona State Sun Devils. It's a bigger surprise if you zoom out. Now, over the last week, we had started to pick up on the fact that this may happen, but you just talk in totality terms. This is like a 7, I would think, on the surprise scale, because in spring, folks around that program thought there was no shot this was going to happen. Going to be some bumps in the road, but I'm kind of happy and kind of excited to see it happen. Also, Grant Wells at Virginia Tech, hadn't talked about him a lot. He is going to be the starter there. He was there last year, and not a big surprise. I know they had brought a kid in to try and compete with him, but I was just interested overall. Like producer Jesse and I, when we were putting the show together today, we were thinking, okay, all the quarterback battles that happen, like what's still left on the table? And what's wild is while you've got your Oregon States and your Virginia Techs and your Arizona States wrapping things up, we don't know at Alabama. We think it's Jalen Milroe, but we don't know. Nick Saban himself said yesterday, just because I start him, if I do, that doesn't mean anything. Thank you, Coach. Ohio State, we don't know. UCLA, we still don't know. And Ole Miss, we still don't know. So there's a lot still to be determined here. And I think what Nick Saban said about week 1 at Alabama kind of goes for a lot of those programs. I always think back, speaking of Bama, I always think back to the whole Jalen Hurts, Blake Barnett thing, where the whole summer and whole spring everyone thought, oh, it's Blake Barnett's team, it's Blake Barnett's team. And they were technically right, because Blake Barnett started. And I don't know how many of you grew up in the country, so some of you have never seen what a deer looks like when it is in your headlights. But don't worry, all you have to do is go watch the replay of Bama USC to open that season and just check out Blake Barnett. That's what a deer in headlights looks like. So then Jalen Hurts comes in, fumbles the first snap he takes, and still takes over the team, and still leads Alabama to victory, and the rest was history. So it didn't matter what the practice reports had said all spring and all summer. Some guys just have it when the lights come on. That could happen at Alabama. That could happen at Ohio State. That could happen when Dante Moore gets in the game for UCLA. Keep a close eye on these early week games. Just because they may be playing scrub teams in your mind, keep an eye on those games.